I don't know. I just got traumatized from that one time.
You know what? Welcome to Story Sirens, the podcast where we deep dive into myths and legends from around the world. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Yenny. And today we're back to sailing in the seas. We've covered Atlantis, Sinbad, and even the Odyssey. But the sea is vast for a reason. There is always a tale waiting to be told.
That's right. And while we've covered tales involving some pirates, we've never covered a tale specifically about pirates.
There is one pirate who is known far and wide, a pirate with so many stories under his belt that thousands of years later, people still talk about him.
What's better yet is that we don't have to go too far out to find information about him, for this is possibly our first specifically American folklore episode.
Oh my gosh, Sarah, have we covered all the continents already?
I think we've got 2 or 3 left.
Close enough. If you haven't figured out who we're discussing today, then all we've got to tell you is this. Walk the plank.
Now, Yenny, be nice.
But pirates aren't nice, Sarah.
Exactly why we need to be nice. There won't be a lot of niceties in this episode. Not with Blackbeard making his long-awaited appearance.
Cue the talking parrot and wooden leg, people. We are covering the infamous pirate,
Blackbeard.
But that's not all. We'll also be looking into his famed treasure, which is still being searched for today.
Ooh.
Before we talk about the big booty, and no, I don't mean mine or Sarah's, let's talk about the scallywag, shall we? Well, much to my disappointment, Blackbeard wasn't actually named Blackbeard, but instead was a man called Edward Teach.
Can I just say it would have been so great to see a baby born and then just going, yes, name him Blackbeard. Like, that
Absolutely.
is setting him up for success.
And then he comes out being a ginger or something, and it's like, no!
He's just blonde. He's the
just
sweetest,
blonde.
most cherubic-looking little infant. Ah, yes, Blackbeard.
Now, the name itself is also a mystery, because many who were pirates used pseudonyms so as not to disclose their true identity.
Variations of his name include Edward Teach, Thatch, or Thack.
As with most of the folklore tales we cover, not much is known about Edward's early life. What we can gather is that he was born in England around 1680, and years down the line, around 1716, became a pirate. It is said that he possibly was a sailor on privateer ships in his early years, and was part of Queen Anne's War. For quick context, this war lasted around 12 years, from 1702 to 1714, and was fought in North America between the French, Spanish, and English colonists, all of whom were fighting for control of the land.
I'm so proud of you. You gave context.
I know! I was writing it and I was like, Sarah is gonna love this.
I do. Please continue.
During 1716, Edward was settled in New Providence, a very popular pretty island in the Bahamas, and met a certain pirate by the name of Benjamin Hornigold. Now, remember when I said Edward was a sailor on privateer ships? Well, privateer ships are private vessels who have been given a letter of marque, or license, to legally raid other vessels at sea. All of this was allowed because it was under a commission of war.
So in other words, these are professional pirates.
Oh no, Sarah. They have a letter of marque, remember? They were able to raid ships, but could only do so one at a time, with specific orders as to what must be taken. But, yeah, the line is drawn very thin. Privateering was very common during times of war, but usually after the war, those who participated just ended up turning towards piracy. The loot was too good, you see.
You know, with enough search and seizure, you start going, can I seize everything?
Exactly.
Okay.
Back to Edward, aka Blackbeard. Taking into consideration that Queen Anne's War ended around 1714 and Edward began his piracy career in 1716, it kind of does add up, and it quite possibly may be true that he, in fact, was a sailor in his early years. There's also another key reason why many believe he was part of that war, but that comes a bit later, so give me a second. Anyways, Edward joined Captain Hornigold's crew and thus began a blossoming friendship. Captain Hornigold first placed Edward in charge of a sloop, which is a sailboat with a single mast. You might think this is a tiny little thing, but apparently Edward took that sloop around and did some heavy pirating damage.
Ooh.
That sloop held 7 guns and about 70 men, all ready to steal your trinkets, and possibly your wives.
Absolutely.
By the end of 1716, Edward had made a name for himself in the pirate community, but not as Edward Teach, Thatch, or Thack, but as Blackbeard, thanks to his thick black beard.
I mean, that kind of goes without saying, but yes, it makes sense. Okay.
It does. And fair warning, guys, from now that we're talking 1716, a lot of things happen in a very short span of time. So be prepared.
Lead on, oh Capitan.
Thank you. In early 1717, Captain Hornigold commanded one of the most heavily armed ships in the region, the Ranger. And who, might you ask, was Captain Hornigold's second in command? None other than Blackbeard himself. But in September of that year, Blackbeard and Hornigold met Stede Bonnet, a fellow pirate and captain of the ship Revenge. Bonnet's crew wasn't exactly happy with their captain, and with Bonnet's permission, Blackbeard took the vessel as his own. Bonnet would stay hanging around as crew, though, and will make an appearance a bit later on as well. Anywho, a month later, 2 more ships were captured, meaning that Hornigold and Blackbeard's fleet was now a total of 5, and that is literally in the span of months.
Awesome.
I told y'all it was the start of a blossoming friendship, right? But...
Yenny, don't tell me this ends badly.
Would it be a pirate episode if there was a happy ending?
I mean, I guess not, but, you can always hope.
Yeah, well, listen, a lot happened in that year. And by a lot, I mean that Captain Hornigold retired from piracy after being voted out as captain for being too mindful of British-led vessels. This is because he was a British privateer prior to becoming a pirate, and only focused on attacking his enemies.
So I guess we could say that he was a respectable-ish man. He was remembering his roots.
I mean, listen, if we're gonna loot vessels, we gotta loot all the vessels. No softies allowed.
Aye, aye, Captain.
He ended up taking 2 of the ships that both him and Blackbeard had, and the 2 never crossed paths again. Hornigold would be pardoned in 1718 for his piracy crimes, and instead would become a pirate hunter.
Ah, a redemption arc.
But alas, he'd die in 1719 due to a shipwreck during hurricane season.
No.
But, unfortunately, this episode isn't about Hornigold, and so we must sail on to the real star of the show.
Poor Hornigold. But yes, let's continue.
Near the end of 1717, Blackbeard captured a French slave ship named La Concorde. He placed 40 guns on this vessel, hired around 300 crewmen, and changed the vessel's name to Queen Anne's Revenge.
Ah, I'm guessing this sort of solidifies the theory of him being part of Queen Anne's War?
I'd like to believe so, because I mean, literally.
Okay.
Why?
Yeah,
why else?
You're referencing your past there, hon.
Yeah, I thought you wanted to keep a pseudonym so that nobody knows who you are. So.
I like that you're Jersey now.
I don't know. Sometimes it comes out of nowhere.
It was cute.
The makeover he gave the ship and the subsequent acts of piracy that came after it made him well known throughout the Virginia and Carolina coasts, as well as the Caribbean seas. Stories about him grew, of course, some being that he'd torture with and without reason, others that he'd turn on his own crew members without a care, and one tale told that he would purposefully light fuses in his hair to give him a more frightening and daunting appearance. Even his flag was scary, a skeleton stabbing a heart with a spear while toasting the devil with its other hand. It was a very smart tactic, if you ask me, for all the stories and his ominous flag only fueled his ability to scare people and actually make it easier to steal.
I love this level of drama.
He's super drama.
Like, this is actually, Blackbeard is a theater kid.
He was definitely a theater kid growing up. I'm certain of it. You purposefully are burning your hair so that you look crazy. Like, come on.
I love this. That is commitment to the bit.
Oh, for sure. While Queen Anne's Revenge only sailed for about a year, again, a lot happened during that time. There was a lot of treasure that was being taken from many different vessels. One particular vessel that Blackbeard and crew looted was named the Great Allen.
Allen! Allen! Allen!
Allen? Oh my God, that's the gopher!
Yes!
Oh, there it is!
Allen!
I was like, what is she talking about? The gopher, yes.
Allen!
Or is it prairie dog? Is it gopher or prairie dog?
They're in the same family.
Oh, there you go. They're cousins.
Yeah.
So the Great Allen was a very large merchant ship. It was documented that he made the crew disembark on a nearby shore and emptied out all of the cargo before immediately setting the vessel on fire. I'm telling you, this guy is like over the top.
Drama. Oh my gosh, this is great.
A month later, Blackbeard would loot another ship by the name of Margaret, commanded by Captain Bostock. Bostock and his crew were held for 8 hours while Blackbeard's crew looted the vessel, but was released afterwards, and his documented retelling of his experience with Blackbeard would become very important. Now, why would I bring up these two lootings? Here's why. Bostock mentions that Blackbeard's vessel, Queen Anne's Revenge, was filled with valuables, including a very fine cup taken from the commander of Great Allen. This cup would be something that Blackbeard would parade with around the ship afterwards, and he was well known to have this really nice goblet.
His favorite trinket.
And I say this because, again, this will come out later on. He went on to also describe in detail Blackbeard's appearance, being that of a tall man with a thick black beard that reached all the way down to his waist.
Goodness!
This would become the first written account of Blackbeard, but certainly not the last.
Captain Charles Johnson, author of A General History of the Robberies and Murders of the Most Notorious Pirates, had quite a lot to say about Blackbeard. He described him as tall, with broad shoulders, wearing knee-length boots and dark clothes, and a long, vibrant coat, topped with a hat.
He was definitely a theater kid.
This is a theater kid, and I feel like Captain Johnson may have had a little bit of a boy crush. In times of battle, Johnson states Blackbeard would have a sling over his shoulders with 3 braces of pistols hanging in holsters like bandoliers and stuck lighted slow matches under his hat, all of which we now know he did to cause fear among those he was about to steal from.
What is interesting and should be told is that there are no written accounts of Blackbeard actually ever murdering any of his captives or torturing them, which is funny. Perhaps the scary look was all he needed to ensure he'd easily get all the treasure without actually having to do any harm.
What's the line from Wreck-It Ralph? I'm a bad guy, but I'm not a bad guy.
There you go. Up until 1718, Blackbeard continued doing his acts of piracy alongside Stede Bonnet, both of them using aliases throughout the time to continue fooling everyone. So this is where it gets very murky because there was a lot of accounts that I was researching that it was different names, but they knew it just had to be Bonnet and Blackbeard. So
I love it.
One of Blackbeard's most notable moments was when he formed a blockade on the port of Charlestown, South Carolina. In just 1 week, around 9 vessels were completely looted right as they sailed out of port. Blackbeard told his captives that he needed medical supplies to be given to his fleet by the colonial government of South Carolina, and if they didn't cooperate, they'd be beheaded and their ships would be burned. Now we all know that he really did burn ships to the water, to the ground.
Yeah.
So, with a prisoner in tow, 2 pirates entered the town seeking the medical equipment, and when the pirates did not return immediately, Blackbeard brought his ships into the harbor and caused havoc in town.
Love it!
Yeah. The medical supplies were granted, and Blackbeard released the remaining prisoners, but not before taking everything they owned.
Chaos.
Now, I would like to add, that's very thoughtful that, apparently something was going on in his ship that he needed these medical supplies.
Yeah.
And he was willing to do whatever it took to ensure his crewmates would get better. So, he might have been bad to the general public, but to the crew, he was a great boss. So,
we would hope.
Which would also be a fight towards these tales that he would turn on his crewmates. Because you're saving them. You're not trying to, hurt them. So, yeah, maybe he wasn't that bad. He's a bad guy, but what is it again?
Yeah, I'm a bad guy, but not a bad guy.
There you go. That's going to be the motto today. Now, towards the end of 1718, a royal pardon from London to all pirates was being offered. Of course, it came with a catch.
Of course.
Well, yeah, come on now. You can't get everything for free. Immunity would only be given to those who did acts of piracy before January 5th, 1718.
That's very specific.
That is super specific. Bonnet and Blackbeard had been doing acts of piracy well into the year, especially the recent one of South Carolina.
Yes!
And Blackbeard was especially famous.
Oh my gosh.
It's said that Blackbeard confided in Bonnet that he would be willing to ask for a pardon, but both knew they were more than likely to be hanged.
Ugh.
Here is where details are a bit murky. Bonnet went in search for that pardon without Blackbeard, and he actually obtained it. Upon returning to grab his ship Revenge and his crew, he found that the ship had been ransacked and his crew marooned by none other than Blackbeard himself. Bonnet would attempt to seek his revenge, but wouldn't succeed. Because he couldn't find him, he just went back to piracy, was caught, and then hanged.
Friendship is just not in the books for Blackbeard, apparently. Now, there are reports that Blackbeard was well aware that Bonnet was going to ask for a pardon, some accounts mentioning that he even told Bonnet to go for it. Some believe this was all a ploy to see if, in fact, the royal pardon would be granted. Blackbeard knew his vessel, Queen Anne's Revenge, was becoming a liability. It was too well known, and he was in danger of being captured and subsequently hanged for his piracy. So, in other words, he used Bonnet to ensure he could safely ask for a pardon. Sleazy move, Blackbeard.
He's a pirate, Sarah. We can't expect nothing less from him. And a very smart pirate, might I add. A very smart man.
Sending a decoy. He's like, here,
Yeah.
take Bonnet. Take Bonnet.
Here's the funny part. 2 days after Bonnet received his pardon, which is around June of 1718, Blackbeard made his way to North Carolina seeking the exact same governor, Governor Charles Eden, in order to receive this pardon. Not only did Blackbeard receive the pardon from the governor, but he somehow was able to also receive a commission to become a privateer.
We've come full circle.
We've come full circle here. Remember, guys, a privateer is basically just a pirate with legal backing to loot you.
I love this.
And now, yes, privateering meant you could only loot specific ships for specific things. But it's Blackbeard, y'all.
Can't stop, won't stop.
And apart from that, there are tales that Governor Charles Eden was actually in on all the piracy that Blackbeard would do after this and was a part
he's in
of
the
it.
government. Of course he's corrupt.
Of course, it's super corrupt. With the title of privateer, he let go of Queen Anne's Revenge and settled for a sloop which he named Adventure, which is nice.
Yeah,
it's a different.
I like that.
And of course, you shouldn't be surprised that by August 1718, he was back at it again as a pirate.
2 months? He could only hold out for 2 months?
That's a long time in pirate days.
Yes, but legal immunity? Okay, fine.
But remember that Governor Eden was a part of this too, so he was okay with it. He was okay with him pirating as long as he would take some of that money. So,
Blackbeard's not wanting to share the spoils.
Now, by this time, he was already widely known across the colonies. And the first warrant for his arrest was given by the governor of Pennsylvania. Here's the thing. nothing came out of it because Blackbeard was already one step ahead of the game and sailed away before authorities could catch him. I mean, that's crazy,
I
bro.
love it.
You sail away on a ship. Imagine that he's just there, like, putting his middle fingers out.
Oh, absolutely. He's just
being
like, you thought you got me?
Okay. Blackbeard would then anchor in Ocracoke Island, which was just off the outer banks of North Carolina. From there, he could see all the ships sailing about. But a particular ship caught his eye.
Oh, no.
One that was commanded by none other than Charles Vane, another notorious pirate in his own right, whom even Captain Hornigold, which during this time was a pirate hunter, was searching for. Captains Blackbeard and Vane met, and soon both of them, alongside other famed pirates, band together. This merry band would be Blackbeard's biggest mistake, for he ended up catching the attention of a certain governor, which is Alexander Spotswood, governor of Virginia. For those who may not be so good with geography, Virginia is right above North Carolina. They actually share the border.
Mm-hmm.
And Blackbeard's favorite colony to be in was North Carolina.
Of course.
Blackbeard's crew had moved into some seaport towns in Virginia and were causing problems, which Spotswood was not a fan of. So he was already getting used to Blackbeard's ways, and that was not okay with him.
Yeah.
And Spotswood was also aware that Governor Eden was kind of playing around a little bit with Blackbeard and allowing a lot of these things to happen. So it was kind of like he knew that North Carolina or the Carolinians, right? I think it's Carolinians, wouldn't do anything about it. They were just kind of letting it go.
Yeah.
Spotswood privately funded a group of pirate hunters to end Blackbeard's reign of piracy. For he believed that upon capturing Blackbeard and his vessels, he would receive immense treasures, because by this point, everybody knew that Blackbeard had to be rich.
Mm-hmm.
Only having 3 years into his pirate life, he had to have been filthy rich from all the plundering. We're talking 9 ships at one time just in South Carolina.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Not including all of the other plundering and looting he did from different towns or seaports that he went to, alongside just ships in general that he would see around, the way. So, Alexander Spotswood would hire the HMS Pearl and HMS Lime under the command of Lieutenant Robert Maynard. And these ships and their lieutenant were contracted to find and dispose of Blackbeard. It would not take long for Maynard to locate Blackbeard, who was anchored in Ocracoke Island at the time. Thinking that he could surprise attack them, Maynard blocked all exits and went in for the attack. Yet, our ever-cunning Blackbeard had seen them coming from far away. Remember, listeners, Ocracoke Island gave him a view of who would come in and out without any problem.
He chose his dock strategically.
Oh, absolutely. Immediately, Blackbeard began his attack, and in just minutes, a third of Maynard's forces were wiped out. Gone.
Good.
You remember, guys, we're talking a lot of guns, we're talking a lot of crew. Maynard pushed forward and reached Blackbeard's ship. The pirates immediately jumped into HMS Pearl, ready to battle. The pirates knew they'd walk away from this unscathed because the HMS Pearl was empty. There was no crew.
Yeah.
Or was there?
Oh, no.
Maynard had a trick up his sleeve.
Oh, no.
Maynard had told his crew to hide beneath the deck in hopes that Blackbeard and his crew would jump from their vessel into his. So now they're on his, what's it called? They're on his court. So, And guess what? It worked.
Flip.
In a moment, all of Maynard's crew came out from under the ship and began their fight with the pirates, who were now completely overwhelmed. Blackbeard and Maynard reportedly fought each other, hand to hand, pistol to pistol, and sword to sword, man. It was crazy.
This is
and
insane.
though he put up a good fight, Blackbeard was too overwhelmed and died from his wounds, which apparently he was stabbed over 20 times, shot 5 times. He's tried to
stay
in. He was going for
Listeners, y'all can't see my face, but it is shock and awe over here.
Yeah.
Shock and awe.
Upon his death, Blackbeard was decapitated and his head was hung from the mast of his own sloop, the Adventure.
No!
Most, if not all his crew, were hanged. Lieutenant Maynard wrote in his logbook,
"Little wind and fair weather. This day I anchored here from North Carolina in the Adventure sloop Edward Thatch, formerly master, a pirate, whose head I hung under the bowsprit of the said sloop, in order to present it to ye colony of Virginia, and ye goods and effects of said pirate I delivered to my commander's dispersal." Yenny, I don't know how to feel right now. Am I saddened by the death of Blackbeard?
"Don't worry, I am too. But again, he really was a bad guy."
But was he? Didn't you say there's no written account of him ever killing someone?
I did, but Sarah, looting is bad.
I know, it's very bad. It's just, he was so cool.
I know, he was so cool. I'm really sad. Our theater kid has come to, his stage presence has ended.
It has ended.
The curtain has closed.
And that was a dramatic exit.
Dramatic exit. 5 shots. 20 stabs. He kept going as far as he could. Actually, there is no written account of who actually killed Blackbeard because there's no way to find out. It could have been Maynard or it could have been one of the crew members. Nobody knows.
So what happens now, Yenny?
Ah, yes. Now deceased and no longer a problem, one question remained. Where is all of the treasure he had stolen throughout the years? The loot that was recovered during Maynard's battle with Blackbeard was very small compared to all the tales and written accounts of the captain's looting. Maynard and his crew continued searching for Blackbeard's treasure, coming up empty-handed and disappointed, only finding casks of sugar, cocoa, and indigo dye, plus a very, very tiny amount of gold. When his crewmates were taken and questioned, his crewmates laughed in their faces and told him that they had asked him the same exact question right before this whole ordeal happened. And his response was,
"Nobody but himself and the devil knew where it was, and the longest liver should take it all."
Oh, Sarah, you'd be a great pirate.
Was that okay?
Yes, it was. I loved it. Maynard searched for 2 weeks in the island of Ocracoke for any signs of hidden treasure, but found none. Now, his time here sparked stories throughout the colonies of massive hidden treasure, and some historians believe that there may very well be hidden treasures due to the written oral account his crewmates gave. Now, here's my thought, though. As a pirate, he could have also just spent all the money, which is why he continued looting. So maybe he was a broke pirate. And, he just enjoyed...
Money in, money out.
Yeah, he probably just enjoyed the thrill of piracy, but didn't have a lot of money with him. He just kept his really pretty, very fine, pretty cup. That was it.
The real treasure hunt for him was the adrenaline.
The adrenaline, that's it. Now, centuries would pass and the search for Blackbeard's treasure would hold true. While there are many, many stories of possible findings, I'm going to leave you with 2. One of which I found very funny.
I love this. I'm so ready.
In 1929, Ben Dixon McNeil, correspondent for North Carolina's Raleigh News and Observer, wrote a story for the paper with a startling headline.
"Blackbeard's buried treasure found at last, but mystery of pirate gold not yet solved."
The story went that back in 1928, 3 duck hunters apparently went to Plum Point on Bath Creek, North Carolina, and found Blackbeard's hidden treasure. Upon finding it, they quickly placed it in their boat and sailed away, never to be seen again.
That's it? That's the story?
Yep. While there was no
Not good
factual...
enough.
I know.
Not good enough.
Well, there was no factual account of Blackbeard's hidden treasure being found, and no eyewitness accounts of 3 duck hunters specifically running away with a big treasure chest. McNeil stated that this is, in fact, the truth.
That's not how journalism works, McNeil. You call yourself a reporter, a correspondent? Sir.
Another story lives in Virginia's first landing state park. But this one's a paranormal tale.
Finally.
Apparently, Blackbeard's spirit lives on in this park, guarding his treasures, which are buried somewhere near. Story goes that knowing he held too many riches, Blackbeard buried his loot in the dunes of Virginia before leaving for North Carolina, which is pretty smart, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Park visitors say they've seen mysterious footprints on the sand, and even glimpses of a headless figure in the distance. Beware. If you get too close to where he has buried his riches, Blackbeard will appear in front of you and stop you from getting any closer.
Ooh. So, even today, there's no sign of Blackbeard's treasure?
Well, Sarah, not exactly. While a treasure chest full of gold hasn't been located, apparently Queen Anne's revenge and some of the loot she plundered has possibly been found. In 1996, Intersul Inc., a private company that specializes in finding historical shipwrecks, found the vessel 25 feet underwater and less than a mile off North Carolina shores. Now, I say possibly found because there is no exact artifact that has been found in the shipwreck that holds any information as to whether or not it was Blackbeard's vessel. While nothing is crystal clear, many do believe this shipwreck is in fact Queen Anne's revenge, and the excavation and research of the artifacts still go on today, with more than 400,000 pieces being raised from the site.
My gosh.
It should be noted that some of these artifacts include pieces of a wine glass, which could very well be that very fine cup taken from the commander of Great Allen. Ah, you like my writing? You see what I did there?
I love it.
Yeah, the suspense. Allen! You can actually see the artifacts that have been recovered online, thanks to Queen Anne's Revenge Project. We'll leave the link in the show notes.
Opening a new tab.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty cool. I went through it and I was like, whoa, this is cool. And you can actually go see him in person, too.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing.
Apparently, they found like a bunch of like cannons that it's around the number of cannons that supposedly Queen Anne had. It's like there's a lot of evidence that could lead to them believing it's Queen Anne's revenge, but there's like nothing that says like, this is Queen Anne revenge,
right.
Vessel. Despite the ongoing searches, there still has not been any true accounts of the famed Blackbeard's treasure being found. But in all honesty, if I found a treasure chest filled with gold, I probably wouldn't go around telling people about it. You'll just see signs.
Yeah, I wouldn't tell anybody, but there would be signs.
There will be signs.
So, even though it's not the most exciting story, maybe those 3 duck hunters really did find the treasure?
I mean, maybe. McNeil might not be wrong.
He might not be wrong, but I still want him to shore up his reporting skills. So, I think we can agree that Edward Teach had an insane life, Yenny.
Oh, not insane per se, but perhaps a pirate's life.
I see what you did there. I don't know if I approve.
It was cute when I read it.
It was cute.
And when I wrote it, I was like, I'm so funny. Sarah's probably not going to laugh. So
I did laugh. Huh?
Oh, you did. You thank you. Thank you. All right, let's go into some modern media. As mentioned prior, many written accounts of Blackbeard come from Captain Charles Johnson's A General History of the Robberies and Murders of the Most Notorious Pirates, which, by the way, he could have condensed that title, okay?
That is a very
long
title.
Oh,
my
loquacious, gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
$10 word. Which, fun fact, the true authorship is unknown.
Like everything with pirates.
Yeah, there might not really have been a Captain Charles Johnson. Remember, many pirates used aliases. Thanks to Johnson's accounts of Blackbeard and all of the legends that follow him, many books and films have been inspired by him, including amusement park rides.
Both Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island and J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan were inspired by Johnson's tales. And of course, Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean used the tales of piracy to bring to life an amazing pirate franchise that's beloved by many, with Blackbeard being a major antagonist, of course. And to think all of that came from one cheesy little amusement park ride.
Oh, and I love that ride.
In season 4 of Netflix's Outer Banks, Blackbeard's treasure becomes the Pogue's target, specifically an amulet said to have been a gift Blackbeard gave to his wife, Elizabeth.
I'd like to add that there is no proof that Blackbeard ever had a wife. Maybe a couple of girlfriends, but never a wife.
I was about to
Or an amulet.
I don't remember you mentioning that. You were very thorough in this.
Thank you. I tried and cried while I wrote it.
Yep. The novel On Stranger Tides by Tim Powell follows puppeteer John Chadnack, who, upon going to Haiti to claim some inheritance, meets a band of pirates and becomes one himself. This novel gave inspiration for Pirates of the Caribbean's 4th film, On Stranger Tides.
Which, fun fact, is also the movie where Blackbeard makes his appearance as a major antagonist.
Finally. And lastly, for modern media, the comedy, romance, alternative history TV show Our Flag Means Death stars Blackbeard and Stede Bonnet. And while it wasn't a huge hit when it first came out, it's gained quite the cult following. Maybe the treasure was the friends we made along the way?
I highly doubt it because Blackbeard was not a very nice friend. We can all admit that he was not very good with friendships. But,
Yes.
I mean, listen, he might have not been very good with friendships, and he might have, totally done Bonnet dirty, but...
I'm sorry,
but-
just with you saying that right after Our Flag Means Death has a totally different connotation, and I love it.
I know. It's just here's the thing. Apparently, Hornigold and Blackbeard never crossed paths again. So they must have left in good terms, and they're just like, hey, you know what? I won't bother you if you don't bother me. Because we do know that Hornigold was loyal. He never went to any of the British privateers, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could say that maybe Blackbeard was loyal to a certain extent, but something went on with Bonnet that he did what he did. I don't know.
It was a nasty breakup.
A nasty breakup. Anywho, let's go into Siren Call, shall we?
Yes.
We cannot talk about Blackbeard without asking you to sit back and watch Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. Enjoy Ian McShane's portraying Blackbeard, and of course, Johnny Depp making us laugh as Jack Sparrow.
Always, always. Well, friends, thanks for coming with us on these Stranger Tides. And we will
I
see
love
you
that.
next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Story Sirens. You can follow us on Instagram at Story Sirens Podcast. Want to support us? Send us a cup of Ko-fi by searching ko-fi.com/storysirens. We've got lots of treats for those who become siren seekers. All research materials can be found in the episode summary. Music by Donald Guzzi and artwork by Alexis Torres. Story Sirens is a Feather and Fin production. See you soon.